All right, guys, welcome back to the show. I'm Titus with my dad back today. It's been a little while. I think it's been since last off season that you've been over here, and
Probably.
we did a bunch of podcasts. So my dad's Larry Headings. If you are new to the podcast and never had heard him on here, he's back today, and we got a topic I kind of told you guys about in the last episode that we'd be talking about. It's gonna be a two-part, may even be three. I don't know. We'll just see how this goes, but we're gonna talk on the topic of masculinity, and a lot of things have been going on. Just kind of for an intro, it's a very important thing to discuss. I know there is women that listen to this podcast. I would say probably the majority of it's men. I don't really have a full way to track it, but I can kind of base it off of what happens on YouTube and stuff. Just most of the topics, but I do know there is a little bit of a spread there. When it comes to more topics like this, I do know that more women listen in, even though you would think because of the topic, maybe it's not. But here's the thing. We're living in a day and age that masculinity is attacked, and we're going to do that on the next one. This first part is going to be on what is masculinity, and we want to define that. And again, my dad was saying before we started, we're not claiming to be some highly educated master's and doctor's degree on this stuff, but we're basing everything off of experience and life, and more importantly, the Word of God. So, and that's where, if anyone's wise or has knowledge, you just dig into what they're saying, and more than likely, it all stems from the Bible, because that's where everything starts and it ends. So, if this interests you in this topic, stay tuned. And if it doesn't, then it is what it is. But we're going to get into this, and we want to define masculinity and just the qualities and characteristics that define men. So, Dad, it's good to have you back on.
Thank you.
Been busy?
Yeah, a little bit. Been traveling on the go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Trucking business.
yeah.
I feel like you're gone a lot.
Yeah. About to
Driving.
take another trip.
Yeah. Long haul.
Finally, me and your mom.
Yeah. When did you finally get her talked into it? I thought that's been an up and down.
I don't
And
know.
remember, she probably will listen to this. So, yeah.
Okay, hi. So I got to watch what I say, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't know if I really even talked her into it. She makes her own decisions.
Well, yeah.
But probably I've wanted her to be with me all the time, every time I go out like that. And then it's not my business. I have actually a company. It's called Night Transportation, and they're $1 billion business. And so they've been really good to me as far as the ability to pick and choose when I want to work. As a casual driver for 6.5 months, I basically pretty much did it full time. But then I was going to quit to go hunting, elk hunting, and I let them know. And they said, you could be a casual driver. And I said, what's that? And they said, as long as you do one day every 30 days, you can, pick when you want to work, and as long as you want to work. And so I thought, that sounds good.
Yeah.
So let me think about it. So I told them after thinking about it a little bit, I'll do at least 3 days to start out, see how that goes a month. And so anyhow, I started doing that. Then it went to 5 days, and then you're based on time.
But you're scheduling yourself, so I mean,
schedule myself. I call them up. I tell them, hey, or before I even leave, they always ask me, well, when do you want to do it again? And it could be 2 weeks. I mean, the last 2 months, I've actually went 2 different times in a month, and there's a reason behind that. But anyway, and so this time I asked if I could go see my sister in Pennsylvania. And they said, well, yeah, sure. So they said, you can get a load, and it'll probably go to Alabama or Tennessee. And so that's when I asked Mom if she would want to go. And she said, well, Nancy, her sister, her son passed away about a year ago. And so Mother's Day is this coming. It kind of goes along with what we're going to be talking about. But Mother's Day, father, mother. Anyway, so Mother's Day, and so I'll talk to him. I'll see if we can go down to Florida, and so from Alabama. And so I asked them. They said sure. They have a terminal right down close to Nancy, and so from Alabama go to Florida, And then from Florida, it'll work up to Pennsylvania, where my
okay.
sister lives.
You're going that route.
Yeah.
Okay.
Belleville, Pennsylvania. They said loads going into Florida, it's real easy to get, but loads coming out of Florida isn't always as easy to get exactly where you want to go. You might have to go roundabout. And the reason that is I think it has to do with manufacturing, because they're picking up from big distribution centers or manufacturers and then taking it somewhere. So you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah.
The loads going in there from LA, it's easy to get, but to come out of Phoenix isn't, back to California, whatever, isn't always that easy. So anyway, but
they already got you routed out.
It's pretty cool, yeah. So as I get to Alabama, then they'll have a load figured to somewhere in Florida, close to Nancy, and then we'll be able to I can stop for 2 days or whatever I want, and then from there, go there and support Nancy somewhat, and then from there, head up to my sister.
Cool.
So yeah, that'll be pretty cool.
Go
up there with
on the dime.
The Amish. Yeah, they're paying my way.
Yeah,
paying me basically, and driving a truck, and
that's
Mom
slick.
will be riding with me.
Yeah.
So that's pretty awesome, really.
Yeah.
So
and you don't are you on a time crunch? Like you got to get there at a certain time, or I mean, you don't want to take forever, but I mean,
no, there's always a schedule. Like my load, I pick up at 1500, which is 3 p.m. Right there by Reno, by Cabela's, and then Monday, which would be the 15th, I got to deliver it by 7 a.m.
to Florida.
No, to Alabama, which is
Alabama.
Plenty of time.
Oh yeah.
So basically, I'll probably choose to do like 8-hour days or 9-hour days.
That's not even nothing, huh?
Yeah, it's like
That's sweet.
It will be based on where I know that I'm going to stop along the way.
Yeah.
So I think it's a beautiful. My last trip down there on 395, dude, that super bloom that's going on, and it may be over because it's been a couple weeks, but it was so beautiful. The desert literally came alive. I went down there for the last 3 years, up and down, and driving, and it's nothing I've ever seen like this. It is beautiful. And so the desert's become alive. And this is just an opportunity to go back east. I mean, I was thinking about I can go see anyone in my family anywhere. I could go see John Carpenter in Missouri if I want to.
Right.
So
that's cool.
It's pretty awesome.
Really. That is cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get into this. We got somewhat of an outline, but we're just going to talk about some things and try not to get ahead of myself because I know sometimes I'll have a tendency to do that, but I don't want to leave nothing out either. So anyways, we're just going to look at some common traits associated with masculinity. And first off, the first thing I think most of the time we look at is physical strength, right? And
or the lack of.
Or the lack of, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you take a guy in general, just any guy, right? And it's just not that we're comparing ourselves to women. It's not even the same thing, but I'm just saying you look at a guy, even the weakest looking guy, he's more than likely, most of the time, he's going to be stronger than a woman, right?
Right.
Just because that's the way God created it. So we look at those things. Over the years, as far as masculinity, I mean, how I look at things a lot of times is like I looked at men like war heroes and stuff, and the strength and courage that men have had in the past. Those guys will never really say they're courageous, right? But they're guys that did stuff in the moment, in the time that dictated and needed that. So like, if we needed, your brothers in arms were on the battlefield, and I can't think of his name right now, but he was one of the recipients of the Medal of Honor, and there's been several. But he basically threw himself in harm's way, ran up the hill, being shot multiple times. I mean, to get the Medal of Honor, you basically had to have multiple gun wounds, near death, save a lot of your comrades, and still make it out alive to get that Medal of Honor and have the story known by someone else. Because, I mean, there's a lot of unsung heroes that people have no clue what they did because there may have been no one there to witness it. So when I look at masculinity as a general topic, I got a frog in my throat too. I look at all these different things. I look at strength, physical strength, build, obviously. Like, I don't think we need to say it's anatomy, right? is part of what defines a man or masculinity. Courage, leadership. Men, women, biblically, women are leaders of the home. Men are leaders, out on the workforce, or leaders of their home as far as the overall and what they need to be. But that's just kind of like what I think most of us look at masculinity as, right? Just a brief overview of what that is. Anything to add to that? Like just a brief overview of when you think of masculinity, what other things besides physical strength, courage, leadership, what other things would you add to that?
So like you said earlier, I literally, I'm 67, by the way. And so I believe that, here Titus is 39, and he's my son and our firstborn, actually. And that name, Titus, is a strong name. And so the things that I look at, I appreciate, because I've always tried to stay in shape. I took martial arts and I lifted weights and all that stuff. But I think a lot of it has to do your mindset. Mm-hmm. And it's actually much deeper than that. I believe that there's actually something I never even talked to you about when we were actually going to have this podcast is, hormonal things. Mm-hmm. Hormonal things. And how the food industry has how it's changed big time what people are eating. Yeah. And if you read about, sugar, what it actually does is decrease your testosterone. Mm-hmm. And so there's many things like that. And I'm no scientist, and I don't have a PhD or none of that, but I have life experience. Mm-hmm. And I was born in 1955. And I've seen a lot of trends that people that are your age that haven't experienced. You can read online. Right. But you haven't experienced it, and I have. And so that right there is wisdom. And so one of my favorite books in the Bible is Proverbs, is because Solomon was the wisest man and the wealthiest, And so, all these, I've been with a company that actually is a network marketing company for almost 30 years. And I still, I was one of the leaders in the West Coast developing this area. And so they're big time into health and wellness. And so even as my dad, who passed away at 91, him and my mother were married 69 years, and they passed away 5 weeks apart. If you look at Gramps, my dad, I was raised a Mennonite, and my dad growing up was a super hard worker. But my dad took me fishing. My dad took me hunting. My dad, you will agree with this for sure. My dad was a very humble, very kind. I would say meek. Mm-hmm. Jesus, even in the Bible, he was meek. Mm-hmm. And lowly. He literally was. And I don't have any idea what his build was or any of that stuff. But he was all powerful. Mm-hmm. He was the Word. Mm-hmm. He spoke the Word. He was the Word, which is really amazing when you think about that, how that actually works together. And so I've committed in my life is committing that word to memory, because it's all powerful. The Bible said that the Word of God is quick and powerful, sharper than any two-edged sword. And so, just because my Gramps, my dad, he literally for 20 years, 6 days a week, he had a farm. We had a farm. Mm-hmm. And he also worked at a seed cleaning warehouse. Mm-hmm. And I remember going there as a little kid. And what happened is they had this cleaners, and the seed would go into these 100-pound bags, burlap bags, and he would sew it up by hand. We're talking a long time ago, okay? And he would sew them up by hand, and then he would put it on pallets. And those pallets, I remember, was like as high as his head. And so you think about it, this is 100-pound bags, and he's doing this 10 hours a day. Yeah. All day long, 6 days a week for 20 years. Mm-hmm. So he wasn't not a big man. I mean, I remember growing up, I thought he was a big man, right? But I think he said he was like 5'10", at his peak, but then Gramps, by the time he was passing away, gravity like 5'6", and bones decreasing in size. He was probably 5'6". He was a little man, but to me, I would love to be just like him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of my personality traits, I believe, came from my mom.
Mm-hmm.
You know, meaning her willpower was incredible. She was probably the hardest working physically woman I've ever met,
Mm-hmm.
but she wore out her body too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and but Gramps was this kind, meek man, and I don't believe that I do not believe at all, spiritually speaking, biblically speaking, that you're a dictator.
Right.
You're not a dictator. You're supposed to love your wife.
Mm-hmm. As Christ loved the church.
As Christ loved the church and died for it. And then, you know, her responsibility is also, I believe part of it, according to the Bible, is to respect, honor you.
Mm-hmm.
You're a team. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you're a team that if you work together, because it says if a house divided cannot stand.
Right.
If me and my wife your mom are always fighting and pulling each other one way or another, it's not gonna be as successful as two people working as one,
Mm-hmm.
which you can be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sports, you play softball, you play football, you play all that stuff. I have all my life, and it's like as a team, you get a lot more done,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it doesn't belittle her. I mean, if you go to the Bible and look in Genesis, it talks about Adam was created, right? Out of the dust of the earth. He was made. And then the woman came from the man, but it doesn't mean she's less than.
Right.
And I think that's a lot of the problem because the world, I think they try to cause division and they try to like think that, you know, believers in the Bible or Christ are these, you know, dominant. And maybe there are guys like that.
Oh, there is.
You know, and I know there is. I know.
But that don't put us all in that same.
Yeah, don't put us all in that same category. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And no different than I've been self-employed all my life, adult life, 23 years old till now. And every corporation, every company has to have somebody that's the ultimate decision maker, that's CEO. And it's really our failure, our success is based a lot on our decisions. And sometimes we don't always make the best decisions. And because our wives are sometimes so intuitive, a lot of times I wish I would have listened to my wife a little more. Okay. My personality trait is I want to go make it happen.
Yeah,
but
hard charger.
My attitude as I got older, there's a verse in the Bible that says, they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. And that's just part of it. But so I try to wait and be in tune more with what God wants me to do rather than always charge forward. But then when I know that I'm going to keep moving forward, whether it's a little bit at a time or whatever. Yeah. But so, all I can really say is, I had a mom and dad that were an example. Mother's Day is coming up. If I wouldn't have had a mother and if I wouldn't have had a dad, I wouldn't be here right now, and neither would you. Mm-hmm. So I think what's happened is part of the issue that's going on too is we have this fracture or, this divorce rate that's like probably around 50% or more.
Plus, yeah.
At least. And what's happened is a lot of the masculinity, these little kids that are growing up have no example. Mm-hmm. And that's hard. I feel for them. You know what I mean? It's like so terrible that actually is going on, and it takes work, right? It takes work.
Let me piggyback onto that too. The other problem there too is even if there is a home that is together, the dad is absent in a lot of ways. Maybe he's there, but he isn't there.
Exactly.
And that's one of the things I was wanting to talk about too, is add that in later, but I just wanted to piggyback off that. It's like we as men can be there, but we ain't there. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not saying it's as bad, but it could cause just as much damage. It really could, unfortunately, in different ways, right? Mm-hmm. I had my dad, but he was never there. He was doing this and he was working, or he wasn't kind to my mother, or he was abusive to my mother, or there's so many different things there. And it's all going to do different, like you said, it's fractures, right? In different ways.
Right. And so that being said, then my example, growing up, my dad never worked on Sunday. Not once did he ever work on Sunday. I mean, he was a farmer on top of doing that for 20 years, the other thing, but I never once ever seen him work on Sunday. And actually, he could have worked on Sunday because there was one time in particular that I remember the crop that he had, it rained and rained and rained. And there's times that he could have probably worked on Sunday to try to save some of it, but he did not do it because he believed in the Bible. It's talking about honoring that one day, you know what I mean? And so I respected him for that, but at the same time, I'm like, you're losing everything because of it, you know what I mean? So he had a super bad year, but he came out of it, obviously. So yeah, I respected him because of that. And my dad always felt a little bit guilty about having to work all the time. And my mom and brothers and sisters actually worked out in the farm whenever he was not there doing the crops and stuff. And so that really taught me about work to begin with. And then Graham's, you know what she did? Yeah. We had at least an acre garden. So pretty much everything that we ate was made on that garden. You know, peas, corn, you name it. And I literally, you know what's so crazy? And you can't do it. You can't go back, but you can learn from the past, right? But man, me and Mom, we tried before to do a garden and all that stuff, and between the ants eating everything or the bugs eating everything, and thinking, why am I doing this? It's like taking so much time. And it made me appreciate my mom so much because to make that applesauce, to eat that corn, to eat those
the work
peas,
that was involved,
dude. Everything had to be prepared, and she canned it. And you know, she had 2 freezers, big freezers, and
3 walls full, or 2 walls, 2 walls full of canned goods.
It was two big walls full of, say, applesauce and corn and all, along with the meals that she prepared. Fresh out of the garden, the lettuce, all that stuff, you know what I mean? And like, I literally thought, what's so crazy is you're a little kid, you don't know any different, right? I used to want to live in the city, and I had everything. I had horses from the time I was a little kid. I used to get bucked off of horses as a little kid, and if my brothers were with me, they were like, hurry up and get up before Mom sees you. You know what I mean? They, you know, like you always heard the story, like if a horse bucks you off, you got to get back on. And I think that really prepared me for life somewhat because, man, to get wisdom doesn't mean you do everything perfect. I can tell you. It's, you know, experience that you've had this life experience. And so it's so invaluable because you can't get it from somebody that just gets it out of a book. In fact, there's a book said, if how-tos were enough, we'd all be skinny, rich, and happy. And we know that isn't true, right? Yeah. So, but you said, Titus, about the you know, a lot of these people that have all this education, which I'm for education, but I have the School of Hard Knocks. You know what I'm saying? And so a lot of these people that get that, they haven't really maybe even experienced that much because they were taught by somebody else, right? A teacher or a book or something like that. But having that experience and being able to see a bigger picture, I think you can actually make more sense of what's going on today because you got 39 years, a picture of life of 39 years, but I got a picture of it'll be 68 years in October. And so, I mean, I'm a boomer. I was born in 55. I seen basically prayer taken out of school. I seen you know, abortion and how that all went down. And, you know, the whole women's lib thing that went on with that, my right, my body, my right, you know, and all that stuff. And what's honestly quite amazing to me is, you know, that Riley Gaines, I think her name is, you know, this incredible woman, a young woman, who actually is an amazing swimmer. She's gone in competition with a male. You can say all day long it is a male, but I'm sorry, it's a male. And and what it's done and how she's standing up and like, where are all the women that were for women's lib, that cared about voting rights, that cared about, where are they? Literally, you barely, this girl is out fighting for rights for women.
In her early 20s.
In her early 20s.
Where's all these 60-year-old women at that fought for all this stuff, or 70-year-old women?
Because
it goes against it so much.
It totally does. It's like,
if you think about it,
it's like all those things
they're scared.
That were so they're scared. I think of that, but I think it's a little deeper than that. But this girl, I really respect her because she's an amazing athlete, and anyway, she's really been robbed of something that she worked all her life for, because she's swimming against a guy.
Right.
And then he's dressing or undressing in their locker room.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if that was my daughter,
Right.
I'd be, and even where's the dads?
Right.
Like, if that's your daughter, why aren't you talking about it? Why aren't you saying anything about it? Why aren't you standing up for these people's rights? You know? And so that's
why is the and that's where this masculinity thing comes in. Where's the true masculinity? in this
these
situation?
guys, where are they at, man? Like,
where's, like you said, where's the dad at? Where's the uncle? Where's the grandpa? Where's all these people that could be standing right next to her, supporting her?
yeah, exactly.
You know, because that's true masculinity.
Yeah.
That's where it is, and that's where I want to talk about this. Is like, us as guys, we think we're tough and we're strong and we work hard. And I know we do, and we grind. We get out there and work hard and fingers to the bone. And you get up early, you go to bed late. It's tough being a good dad. It's tough being, faithful
in this society.
It's rough. Like, I mean, you can't even. We talk about all the time. You can't hardly work one job. I mean, you literally can't hardly do it. I mean, I'm working. I basically feel like I work one job to have insurance, medical, dental, vision, life, retirement, pay the bills, and then I got to work another one to do anything outside of that. Like, and I know there's other jobs out there you don't necessarily have to do that with, but I mean, like, I was talking to Matt last night, Yarrow. He's kind of doing the same thing, right? He's working for the city, but he's also doing stuff on the side. We're gonna do what we got to do to provide for our families. All the men, I guarantee everyone listening to this is doing the same thing. We work ourselves, but I'm speaking to myself when we do this, and I'm listening to what you have to say from your experiences. Is I want to encourage people listening to this is we gotta step it up. Me, Titus, I gotta step it up. There's more that can be done besides just working hard, because that is a huge thing, and I appreciate every man that does that. As a brother, as men, I appreciate that, and I know, I would say the majority of the people that listen to this are probably blue collar people that are working out, they're hard, whatever. I'm sure there's white collar too, but I'm just saying, like, in this time we live in, it's being, and I don't want to jump ahead, but it's being attacked, and we're just looking at what it is, and it is these things. It is working hard. It is being there for your family, and we're gonna get more into detail. But like you just brought that point up is a great point. It's like, where is the deeper level of masculinity?
Exactly.
Okay, we got these things figured out. We work, we provide, we do this, we do that. But what about those things?
Mm-hmm.
Where are we standing at? What are we, and what will I do, Titus Headings do in that situation?
Right.
What am I going to really do? I mean, talk is cheap. You say that all the time. And defining what a man is to me is those things. It's the hard things. It's the things that, when the rubber meets the road, how we really going to react. And until we experience them, we can't really, I feel like we can prepare for them. But I pray, and I pray that when I say I pray, I'm praying to God, literally, to help me to react and respond the way that I should, that he wants me to, because just like in a helicopter, flying a helicopter, or you driving a truck, I've trained every year, and from the beginning as I started flying a helicopter, and I still train to this day, is emergency procedures. When something goes bad, when I lose an engine, if I lose a tail rotor, if something goes kaputs and the transmission shaft breaks inside the helicopter, I've been trained how to respond to that. But until it happens, you don't know how you're going to react. There's guys that freeze up, right? There's guys that give up. There's guys that respond correctly and they live to do another day. And I've been through those situations, and thank God for prayers and for his angels that have protected me. But thankfully, I've reacted the way that needs to be. Mm-hmm. So I'm thankful for that. But I never knew if I would until I experienced it. Mm-hmm. And so we're not here, and I'm saying this to the audience, we're not here to try to tell people we have it all figured out.
No.
And we have all the answers. But what we are trying to say is we want to challenge each other.
Right.
I want you to challenge me by what you say. I want to challenge people by what I say. And together, I think we can continue the things on like Grandpa had in his life and better them, right?
Right.
Because you're taking from what you learned from your dad and you're trying to tweak the things that maybe he had regrets over, right?
Right. Yeah, this subject actually here, I could go on and on. Okay?
Go. And, I mean, we'll probably have to do more than two.
And again, the thing of it is, using my dad as an example, like I said, he had to be physically strong to lift 100-pound bags.
Right.
6 days a week, right? And mentally strong.
Yep.
Mentally strong.
Right.
I remember Gramps, that year that crop actually got ruined, and that was his major income. I remember him being quiet. He went and talked. He went and talked. I remember him sitting at the chair at that table, and actually I think he was doing, always about tax season, he would get quiet. But, thankfully, I mean, looking back on it now, I believe very strongly in what the Bible says, death and life from the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. So if you're a complainer, or if you're unthankful, or if you're always verbalizing the negative things that happen to your life, I believe you're just going to reap more of it. Personally,
I agree.
I'm 100% believe the power of your words. Am I perfect? No. Do I strive to be? Yes. And so trying to stay thankful for everything. Just like you talked about last night at church, be thankful in the situation. You know what I mean? Like, is the glass half full or is it half empty? It's your attitude. It's what you think about it. And so looking back, it's almost like I can see all that time, even though it's been 60 years ago, 65 years ago, I can see it like it's like here and now. And so I just want to say I'm so thankful for my parents. I wish though, as I grew up in a church, every Sunday, but I really, if I had anything at all to say, is my dad felt guilty. I believe he told me this. In fact, it's kind of embarrassing actually on my part, but I had a rebellious part of my life, you know what I mean? But my dad always felt guilty because he worked so much, and that he never really tanned my hide like I wish he would have. He never, in fact, I can't even remember that he ever did. And so I wish he would have, because the Bible specifically says, spare the rod and spoil the child. It doesn't mean you're an abuser. You and Thomas and Trim both, I mean, I tried to base it on love and talk to you, and maybe I did too much. Maybe I was too hard or whatever. I don't think I was, but anyway, I tried to do it in love is what I'm saying. But my dad, and that was one of the main decisions why I did what I did, because I think I believe it saved you from a lot of stuff I went through because I took care of business. If I said, you did not do things that were right, whether it was in public or not, I let you know what's going to happen, and you knew it, and I kept my word. I'm not going to put up with that. And so, but I did it. I really always try to do it in love. And Gramps, my mom is the one that took care of that business. You know what I mean? But at some point in your life, when you're a boy and you're growing up, a mother's not enough to take care of that kind of business. I'm going to have more, I don't know if you call it respect, probably, respect coming from my dad than I am my mom at some point. And that hit me about probably 13 years old. Well, what changed from the time I was a little kid to 13 years old? What is that? Puberty. I say puberty. And that's a whole nother subject that I could talk a long time about. This whole thing that's going on, I say part of the problem is, number one, is lifestyle. Not only biblically, but it goes way deeper. Okay, it goes way deeper because so much of what people are eating today is changing masculinity, you could say, based on the fact that testosterone levels have been dropping since the 70s. And they can't even tell you, they go, but we don't really know why. Well, to me, I don't have to have no PhD to understand what's going on. It's the food source. And sugar and all the boxed and all the canned and all the sodas, all the carbs that people are eating, all that stuff turns into sugar. Why is diabetes rampant? It's because of the food, dude. And biggest majority of the cases, all that stuff, the food, the sugar, and all that stuff is actually cutting down on the testosterone. And I'll tell you what happened to me when at some point I told my mom, you're not doing this to me anymore, because I used to go to the witch head, okay? That wasn't because of any other reason, in my opinion, other than the fact that I remember going through those times. I remember getting hair in my armpits. I remember, like, looking in the mirror and you're seeing muscles. Like, stuff changed. And I feel... I've said this to you before, but I really believe this with all my heart. I feel the two most challenging times of your life and my life as a man are puberty, because just imagine injecting this, getting a high level of this testosterone that makes you feel like somebody, like you're invincible. It's gone like this through the roof, and you never experience. What happened to my sweet little, kid here?
My little baby boy.
Yeah, my little baby boy is not my little baby boy anymore. And all of a sudden, they're getting a little bit of this, and they're doing this, and you can know all this stuff. But man, life is so full of changes. You don't know what you don't know. And when you're a parent, that's another thing. As a man, I've never been a dad before.
Right.
Your mother never been a mother before. She come from a fractured home. I didn't come from a fractured home. But it was like, I never experienced this before. So how could I be perfect unless, I try to be, but who do I base it on? What I remember from my parents. And mom was big time on reading books about being a parent, because she didn't really have an example, you know what I mean? And so the Word of God, that's the other thing. So I really believe, if you read about it, I've read enough about it, but the testosterone levels have dropped consistently since the 70s. Then on top of it, the second thing, not only is that happening and the challenges that go with this, and all of a sudden you start noticing girls, or girls start noticing boys. It happens with both of us, right? But then what happens is later on, you got women going through menopause and you got men going through andropause. And all of a sudden, the men's testosterone levels age of 40 starts going down. You work out, that helps. Eating clean, that helps. But those levels start dropping. I've actually had blood tests and tested with the company multiple times. And so they start dropping off. And then a guy goes through, the next challenge is like, something's different. And if you don't have this knowledge, you're thinking, what's wrong with me? I don't even have those same feelings anymore. I don't emotionally feel the same. It's challenging. And it is definitely a benefit to work, because that increases your testosterone level. But I'm just telling you, I told you this the other day, sometimes it's mind over matter. It's like your willpower, in my opinion, from my personal experience, your willpower, I used to just go do stuff and like make it happen. I ran. I didn't care. But now I take time, but also it's a mind thing that it feels like that I deal with. And I've been in health and nutrition, forever. Wellness products. In fact, I always say I'm a guinea pig. I got to try. After I read and study it, then I got to try it, like, to have longevity, because I got grandkids and I want to be able to do stuff with them, and I want to keep being able to go elk hunting and any other kind of hunting or fishing I want to do, you know what I mean? But those two times, because how many times have you heard about guys that are going through that and all of a sudden they're cheating on their wife? It even happens, wives are cheating on their husbands, so the bottom line is they're getting somebody younger because I believe this, and now they want to like feel good about themselves or something. And now these younger ones, maybe they don't have the same thing going on with their wife, and what they do is they're going out and potentially cheating on their wife, especially if you don't have the Word of God and believe that one wife for life.
Mm-hmm.
That whole and all that. So yeah, and here's the other thing. What about Hollywood? What about all the sports figures?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
look at the sports figures now. Like, I don't know what they're calling it, but they're like playing like basketball. They're saying one time a week because they need to take care of themselves, and they need it. These guys are getting paid millions and hundreds of millions of dollars. And to me, that's deeper than just like, oh, take care of this asset because they're so good that we need to take care of them. People are like Michael Jordan just goes off the chain when he talks about that. He's like, he was getting, as amazing as Michael Jordan was, he was getting paid $3 million. Like he basically made like $3 million. I mean, I know he had sponsors and there was more money than that, but what they're saying from the franchise, he got paid like $3 million in that career. Those guys are making that in 5 games. They're making that money. You know what I'm saying? And he did it. Kobe Bryant's having his fingers and stuff pop back in joint and keep playing the game. You've had stuff in basketball and football. We've all been wind knocked out of us. My goodness, man. They're making it, and it's not even so much the players that are asking for these things. Like you said, it's deeper than that.
Yeah.
It's the people trying to take away the masculinity. It's trying to soften everything. And I have I'll read it in the next podcast as saying that it's like, my goodness, and when you kind of think there's no hope for the future, there always is, because as long as God's here and he's with us, there's always hope, and there's always things that could change. Because if you're not careful, you could think there's no hope.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
But there's plenty of hope.
But there's plenty of hope. But it's just like the attacks, the things you were saying, and what I've seen just in sports, it's like, my goodness. I mean, like in football, I'm not saying we need to have people going out and getting all these brain injuries because they're hitting each other. I'm not supportive of guys turning into vegetables at the end of their football career, because we should just be pounding each other into senseless vegetables.
Right.
But what I'm saying is, they're just little by little, they're pulling things away, and it's more than just protection. There's a lot more to it than that, and that is to go after masculinity and take away what a man should be and what a representation should be. Because I think there is that fine line there on the scale to where you're just, like I said, you're beating yourself senseless just to say, I'm a man. Like, hurting yourself and causing pain to others, I'm not saying that's not what makes you a man.
No.
It's so much more than that. But at the same time, when you start robbing those little things away, like, oh, you can only play one time a week. It's like, dude, you're nothing. You play basketball. That's great that you make that money. That'd be amazing. But what about that guy that's working 90 hours a week, and barely getting by? I mean, to me, that's part of things that rob what masculinity is. It's like, it's taken away. It's all about entertainment. It's all about entertainment. It's all about, just these things that carry no weight, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And so to add on to what you're saying, it's like, this is so pathetic. It's like, come on.
Yeah.
But what's scary is what's going to happen 10, 15 years from now, right? Where the generation that's 5 years old is now 20 years old, and they've never seen the toughness, the mental toughness that you talked about, the strong mindset, the push through it. Like, I'm sorry, man. Every time that I felt like my feet hurt, my back hurt when we were doing ruck marches, that generation
in the National Guard, right?
Yeah, no, in the Army. When you're doing that stuff, and excuse me,
bless you.
When you're doing that stuff, it goes back to when we were hiking up in the mountains, right? It's all about how we train our children. Right. And I'm sorry, I want to be better at this, because I think of women as soft creatures and delicate, right? And they are, and they should be. That's the way God created them. But at the same time, I also want to put in my girls a tough mindset, because to get through life, you're going to have it. Obviously, number one, you need God.
Right.
But you also need a tough mindset because God's not going to just pick you up and do everything for you. Mm-mm. You gotta pick yourself up and trust in Him with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding, and all your ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct your paths. But at the same time, you still gotta know, I gotta get up. I gotta put in my effort and do what I'm supposed to do and not sit around crying. Like I said on those ruck marches, if I just sat down every time my little feet hurt, my goodness. When I was at basic training, I was at they call it Relax in Jackson. And the reason they call it that, and I didn't even know that, because I could have actually picked to go to like Fort Benning or something. And I honestly wish I would have been there because I didn't know that they have females, and nothing against them, whatever, being in the Army. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, I guess in my mindset, I didn't want to see what I saw. And basically what I saw is, and there was men too, there was guys that fell out for those 10, 12 mile ruck marches. My feet hurt. Oh, I sprained my ankle. It's like, that's how, before the military, that's how you'd weed people out. Mm-hmm. Right? Now they have a van. And this was 2006. They had a van. I'm sorry, 2008. They had a van that would follow along to pick those people up. Mm. So they got through and graduated with me, but they did less. And it's like, okay, yeah, we're just ruck marching. Mm-hmm. What in the world? People that were even finished the ruck march are people that are going to fall out in battle, in combat, right? And here we are doing a simple ruck march, which, yeah, I mean, you're hurt, you're sore, whatever. So were we when we go hike, but we were doing that for pleasure, right? We're climbing these mountains to go find a big bull or find that nice buck. And I still do that stuff today, right? Whether it's duck hunting or big game hunting. And it's like, it's like,
doesn't that what you just said there probably goes a little bit like to public school. Mm-hmm. And what they did is try to make everything equal. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, but not everybody has the same talents and gifts. Mm-hmm. You have a talent and gift in this area that could be stronger than me. It doesn't mean you're any better than me. You just have a gift, right? Mm-hmm. But they got to the point where they're giving medals to everybody.
Yes.
And
when did they start? Was that
I don't know. Like way after I was out of school.
Because so I remember when the participation thing started coming in. And you probably seen it because you were older, and you probably thought, well, here we go, downhill. I didn't really think about it. I feel like I was out of school before. I know I was out of school before that started happening. But I remember seeing that, and it always thought, if that was me, don't hand me something. Oh, we should get on this topic because this topic fries me, not because, I'm saying there was a lot of things I wasn't that good. That's not my natural ability and talent. Right? Mm-hmm. But don't you dare. If you tried to hand me one of those stupid participation medals, I would have slapped it right out of your hand.
Yeah.
Do you think that's going to make me feel better? How? And for the people that do accept that, because little Johnny needs a medal to make him feel, which is a bunch of bogus.
Yeah.
Because I don't believe for 1 second any boy or girl wants a participation medal. It stems from the parents feeling like their little kid's left out, and it's going to mentally mess them up, which is not true. Because of how you raise your kids but naturally, I feel like any kid, whether they're talented or not, and takes one of those participation medals, what do they get out of that? Mm-hmm. A little shiny thing in their hand? We're stealing the drive and the desire to be better.
Right.
So if you get something for doing nothing, why should I get any better?
See, to me, that right there is an entitlement mentality.
Yes.
I'm entitled to this. And what they do, if you start doing that as a little kid to kids, okay, why would they even strive to be better?
Why, when they're 18 and get their first job, are they going to try to work harder than the next guy? Because you can sit there and go sit on the couch for 8 hours and get paid the same because
I'm entitled to it, right?
Yeah, I'm entitled to it.
Yeah, that's just... It's
bad right now. That's one of the worst things right now.
Yeah, so that takes to another major thought. Okay, now leadership. Let's talk leadership on that. So, who's the leader in our government right now?
Good old Biden.
Okay, now look at all the people he's surrounded himself with.
Yeah.
I mean,
like-minded individuals.
Yeah, and so why do you think well, on top of that, then you got the media. You got
Which
the media.
Is the worst. I feel like it's worse than...
Yeah, it's propaganda.
Yeah,
I'm telling you
100%.
right now. You know, I used to think,
North Korea.
Yeah, Russia. They've told us all along, from the time I was a little kid, that Russia's bad, blah blah blah, and they all just put out propaganda. Well, how did I know they were doing the same thing to us, giving us propaganda? And so this comes down from the top. He surrounded himself with these types of people, and so now on top of that, now you have the media, the mainstream media, as they call it, which ain't even mainstream, isn't even mainstream anymore because I never even watch it. But all this so-called mainstream media, they're pushing the agenda of the leadership, and many years ago, me and Mom went to Sacramento, and there was all races that were at that meeting at the state capitol. And what this group wanted was to have minority status. So the African American people, especially Christian African American leaders, weren't having it. They didn't have a choice how they were born. Not saying it was bad or good. They just did not have the choice. These people had the choice. Right. And so that whole minority status was a thing. And I remember, you may not have, you were young, but I remember going there. These people were violent. These people were, they spit on people. We're talking, the majority was the people like me and you, although minorities, right? Okay, different races. And they went to the state capitol and said, no, this is a choice that you guys have, and we do not want the minority status, because they wanted all the bennies of it, right? But they were super violent, and they were spitting on people and doing that kind of thing. And that was my first real experience of seeing, that kind of stuff going on. But what's going on right now, like I said, it's at the top. This administration, just like we could talk about inflation, we could talk about anything. I grew up when I started my business in 1979, and I moved from Oregon to here to start it. Jimmy Carter was president. Interest rates were up to 21, 22%. And they're, you don't know that because you haven't really lived it unless you're researching it, but I seen it. I had a roof truss company. I was involved in building prefab trusses for houses. And, you think, what is it now, 5-6%? You think, oh, my, that's terrible. Okay, well, yeah, it's terrible compared to 0%, but it isn't terrible compared to 21%. Right. And so you talked about, having, and we're kind of like going with the flow here, but you talked about, having multiple jobs. Well, why is that? Well, inflation. Right. What is inflation? Like, really, the dollar bill is worth less. And the cost of food is more, and the cost of housing is more because the dollar is worth less. And so, I seen double-digit inflation, double-digit unemployment. It was like, in reality, they're hiding those numbers right now. There is no way that it is what they say it is. Go buy a dozen eggs. Go buy a gallon of gas. Go buy all that stuff. I remember when gas was somewhere in the neighborhood of 29 cents in that area. I remember when Jimmy Carter was president, we were a laughing stock in the whole world. People laughed at us. I remember Iran, the whole Iran thing where they had hostages and stuff like that. I remember people burning the flag. I remember.
Sounds like right now.
Huh?
Sounds like right now.
Hello. That's exactly what's going on now. I've already seen this.
Yeah.
I already get this game. I already went through. The only way I survived, because I was so determined that I am not going home to my mom and dad's house in Oregon with my tail between my legs. Thank God I met a guy who's passed away now. He was a production manager of a place called Baltimore Aircoil. So for 7 years, I worked a full-time job. Plus, I built a roof truss company, and then Ronald Reagan became president. And right after that thing, and then we got married in '82, and right after that, everything just started booming, and that all changed. Like within a matter of, I want to say it was just a matter of days that Iran let the hostages go because Ronald Reagan let them know, like, you're toast if you don't.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. Everything changed. Interest rates goes down, and life was good. I mean, construction's gone good. Things are booming. Yeah, there was little dips here and there, but as a whole, I'm saying it got good. And then, so I've seen that already. And, like, there's no way in God's green earth. They're saying the inflation, if the true inflation, it's got to be higher than 20%. You know what I mean? Because of the way they calculate it and stuff like that. So anyway, you got to work more. I worked 2 jobs during that, and I never had a break. And I ran like for 20 years, I ran like a crazy fool because I did not want to fail. And think about it. We didn't have phones. This right here.
Right.
Say, this is everything. This basically, faxes are gone bye-bye. I mean, it's like everything. You can run a whole business off that right there, right? So it leverages your time. Here's the deal, though. Some people, like, this phone owns them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This phone owns them.
Right.
So it takes time away from your family, and then your little kids see that, and then they're duplicating that too. And so there's a balance in life, man. I've learned anything. There is this constant thing as a man, as a provider of the home. Is there not a crazy balance between being what you should be as far as giving time to your wife, and especially your wife, Sarah? She stays at home, but she has a YouTube, she's doing that from her home. But then also the girls, right? Because as well as I do, it's a blink of an eye, and there will be grown, and then they're going to be married. And now you're going to go into a whole nother thing that you don't have a clue about. You can only experience it based on watching other people that you know. But it will change when you're in that position. You'll think, God, I want to do this, I want to do that. But until you experience it, it's a whole nother thing. So there's this crazy balance that every man, and you know what, there's women that are the sole provider because whatever happened in their marriage, let's say, maybe they had an abusive man, I don't know. But whatever happened, they're the provider too. Now they are even in a bigger balancing act. Like, how are they providing? Plus, they don't have nobody to support them.
Yeah.
At least mom she homeschooled you guys. She took care of our home. She cooked. She did all the things. To me, that's more responsibility, honestly, for lives, little lives, 3 lives that she has when I'm out trying to do what I got to do to provide for the family. She's also doing that to try to balance that. You know what I mean? There's this balancing act. And when, like you said, like Matt, having to work another job, which honestly, truthfully, and you know this now, and I told you before, I said, having any kind of a side gig, a business at all. If you're a person that actually works for someone else, it is such a mistake not to have a side business because these politicians have made all these laws totally available to you to get all these write-offs and all these benefits to pay less taxes legally, I'm saying, by having the side business.
Right.
And so you know that now, right? Because, so you've experienced it, right? And so these people that are actually working a job, and it's like, man, you feel like a rat on a treadmill, like you can't catch up to it.
You said the other day, a vicious cycle.
Yeah, it's a vicious cycle. Right. Yeah. So, there's so many elements, man. But, these going back to these sports figures too, like, in my opinion, I'm if you have it, whatever, it's your choice. But, like, there ain't no way in God's green earth I'm putting an earring in my ear. But all the idols of all these sports people that make all this money, that people are looking up to, to me, that's not masculine at all. That's to me. It's not masculine. So, it's their choice, obviously. But, like, these little kids look at that.
Yeah.
and they want to.
They have no reason why to do that. They have no reason why not to do that.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
I thought about that the other day. I think you could almost, if you were a public figure that was really well looked upon, I really truly believe this is how sad this is, to where that, to me, that's part of being masculine, is making your own decisions and deciding and deciphering whether or not that's wise or foolish.
Mm-hmm.
Because I thought that the other day. It's funny you bring that up. I thought you could take a figure like that, let's say a Michael Jordan or some bull rider or whatever, and they could do anything, no matter how stupid and idiotic it is. They could put something on their body, pierce themselves some way. They could jump off something. Just anything, you name it, and people are gonna do it just because that person does, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was really trying to think deeper into that. Like, what is that? Do people, like, okay, let me bring this up, for example. Drinking alcohol. Someone, I seen a guy say this one time. He whatever. He's no religion, nothing, right? This has nothing to do with that. He was just talking about, he does other things, whatever, maybe that I wouldn't do. But I'm just saying, he said, I tried it one time and I didn't like it, and he didn't do it no more. Okay. He does other things, whatever. None of us are perfect. But my point for bringing that up is, I thought, okay, he decided himself that he didn't like it. But what I think most people do on anything, whether it's, and I just use that story as an example, I'm just talking about anything. You talked about earrings for men, is they do it for so many reasons: to fit in, to look up, to peer pressure, to look the part,
right,
for security. That gives them some type of security in themselves. I kind of almost lost my train of thought, but I thought, man, what, like, I've heard so many people say things they do, they don't really like doing them, but yet they keep doing the same things they don't like doing, or they don't like the taste, or they don't like the feel they get. But I'm thinking in my head, like, why are you doing it then? And there's so many factors. You could dig into 1,000 different things, right?
Mm-hmm.
It could be insecurity. It could be peer pressure. It could be to play the part. But I thought, man, how masculine is that, to decide what you want to do because you decided it. Mm-hmm. You, not somebody else doing it for you. Just because someone else does it doesn't make it right.
Right.
You know, it doesn't make it the normal. Because I think sometimes, like, well, maybe I'm not normal if I'm not doing that. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'm not normal if I'm not acting like that. Maybe I'm not normal if I'm not going there. You know? What was someone saying the other day? Like, yeah. Anyways, I don't know. If you had something you were adding right there, I don't want to get off track too much there, but
how many times in your life have you heard me say you're free to choose, but you're not free to choose the consequences of your choice? You've heard me say that a few, right? Mm-hmm. You're free to choose, but you're not free to choose the consequences of your choice. Well, the Bible says whatever you sow, you're going to reap, right? Mm-hmm. And the Bible also says you shouldn't have any other God before him, right? And so when I was growing up, okay, my family, they didn't, TV was just really coming out when I was little, but for years and years, I actually believe I was either 13 or 14 before my parents bought a TV, and it was black and white. And I remember, Gramps, if there was anything to do with shooting anybody, even though we hunted, we fished, we did all that stuff, but my dad, in his wisdom, he would almost get upset, like, you guys, you turn that off. Mm-hmm. He would not allow us to do that. And so that went on for years. But like when me and Mom got married, before we started going to where we go to church now, and we had a TV. I used to watch sports all the time. I love sports. I love softball, baseball, and football, and all that. I mean, but the thing of it is, I think those things made you tougher as a boy, as a man. Those things made you tougher. You know what I mean? You had to do. I remember one time running. My two older brothers, and my older cousins would play us younger brothers and cousins, and football. You know, no pads, no nothing.
Right.
To my knowledge, I never broke anything that way. But anyway, I remember one time over at Gare's house, and there was my older cousins and my young, cousins my age, and so they used to always they wanted to play us, right? They wanted to play us, so we played them. But I remember, I can't even tell you how many times this happened. This one time in particular, I was running full blast as hard as I could. And my brother's house was here, the barn was here, and so we played in between. And I remember I was going out for a pass. I was running wide open, looking back as the pass is coming. And I literally ran into that barn wide open. And I mean, it decked me. It knocked me out just for a second. And all I remember is waking up, and Gare was saying, hurry up, get up, before Mom looks out the window and sees you. You know what I mean? So I'm getting up half out of it because he told me, because he was my hero, you know what I mean? Because he was my older brother, right? But those kind of things, looking back on it, I think made me tougher.
Right.
You know, but here's what happened. You'll realize this. Okay, just for instance, like skiing. Remember when me and you and Thomas used to go skiing, and you didn't have the responsibilities that you had now, and I maybe didn't have to feel like you had to be as careful. When I was growing up, I used to go skiing. I skied a lot, and I remember doing jumps and all that stuff. Then at some point, it was like my brain says, like, okay, like I don't have this fear going on, but if I get hurt, this could not be a good thing. And then later on, it even got to the point where I started realizing for every time you do damage on your body,
you got to pay for it later.
You're going to pay for it later. And so that stuff, I would love to go skiing right now. I'd have no problem, but I'm not doing crazy jumps.
Right.
I'm not doing any of that stuff. And I remember you and Thomas, man, you guys were really getting into jumps too. And but then all of a sudden something happened where it wasn't like we haven't skied for a while, right? And but I think what it was, you were married, you got kids now, you got responsibilities now, and right?
Yeah.
Same thing, Thomas. He had a really hard jolt one time, and that kind of changed his way of thinking about doing stuff. And so things change as you get a little bit. I was going somewhere with that, but I don't remember exactly what. But that things change as you grow older. Longevity and being healthy is like a numero uno. It's right up there with godliness.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we kind of not redefined it, but just defined, because I guess when you have to redefine something, it's because it's been convoluted.
Yeah, right.
Right. So I feel like we're trying to redefine masculinity and remind what it is, because it's been attacked so hard. And again, this one wasn't about that. This was just defining it. What is masculinity? But, kind of says, and we already talked about this, but we've been discussing some expressions of masculinity, such as being a good father, and that's what we strive to do. And we'll kind of wrap this episode up, I guess. But present, not absent. That's what a good father is, right? Reminder to myself, reminder to all of us to be there for our families. Like, because I could be sitting on the couch next to my wife and not really have any type of relationship going on there. Just being there is not enough, got to make those efforts. And it is an effort you have to make. I understand that. Like, it just don't happen. A good marriage, a longevity of marriage don't just happen. You have to put the effort in. And I think that's what happens with a lot of people. The two greatest commandments on this whole earth, and they are the two commandments, is love the Lord God with all your heart, soul, mind, strength, body, right? And then the Bible says the second is like unto the first, love your neighbor as yourself. Those two things right there, I'm not telling you, I'm just speaking, right?
I know.
Those two things right there literally solve all the world's problems. If we loved God and we served him with all of our heart, soul, mind, body, strength, that would take care of part two, is love your neighbor as yourself. And when we do all those things, people won't cheat on their spouses. People won't lie in business. People won't cheat each other in business. People won't backstab each other. All these things and all these issues that we have, and taking advantage of the population and the presidents, all of that would be completely fixed. But guess what? We live in a world that is full of sin, and it will be that way. And there's always a choice to make. There's heaven, there's hell, and the only thing that's going to save us is the great Savior,
right.
Jesus Christ. And the only one that can make us what we need to be is Him.
Right.
Is God the Father and His Son, Jesus Christ. And that's the only way. And again, just to recap, we're not saying, my dad's not saying, I don't think we came across this way, but we're not saying we haven't figured out, because we're just letting you know what you're letting me know as a father, what's helped you. And I'm trying to remind myself and live that way, because I've made a billion mistakes. I don't want to make more mistakes. I know that's going to happen. I don't want to speak it, but it will, right? Like, life is life, but I just want to see other people succeed. Right.
Not share life lessons.
And share life lessons. And I want to see those of you that are listening to this still an hour and 10 minutes in, that you, like you said, you are going to make your mistakes and you learn the best from those. Unfortunately, that's just how it is. But if we can take the tools, we can make less of them. And when we do, we can come out of them quicker and maybe make less, mistakes.
I want to say one thing to make sure people understand where we come from in this, because I know you feel the same way. Okay, when you talk about the 2 greatest commandments, everything would be corrected if you stood on those 2 and you did those 2 things. Okay, so we're not talking religion here.
No.
We're not talking religion. We're not saying our church only.
No.
See, because I believe, according to the Bible, I am the church.
Right.
Because I'm part of the body of Christ. So every time I go out there, the Bible says, let your light so shine before men that they may see good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. So we want to live an example. And so what I'm saying is relationship, not religion.
Exactly.
And here's the thing, John 3:16 says, for God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son. So you think about that as an example. I mean, I'm sorry, but I would not have gave you, and I would not have gave Thomas as my sons for the world. Think what God did and gave His own Son.
Right.
That's how. How can you do that?
Can't comprehend
because He knows a bigger picture. Because He knows that's the only way that men could truly be set free. Yep. And so we're totally not talking religion here.
Right.
We're totally talking relationship. Yep. So I just wanted to clarify that. Because when we're talking Bible here, we're not talking any specific denomination. We're not talking about that, because we know that in each one of those groups, which I was raised a minute, I've been to non-denominational, I've been to Baptist, I've been to Pentecost, I've been to a lot of churches and seen what I would say was people within that there was flaws. Wouldn't you agree that we're not perfect people? We go there to learn more, no different than if I would in business, you go to a seminar. Right? They have varying types of seminars, some bigger, some smaller, some at a house level, but we go there to learn more and to hear their experiences in life, so we can grow. But we're totally talking relationship here. And you don't know what you don't know, and the sad thing is you don't even know that you don't know. So if you don't have that kind of a relationship, you can find it. And Titus is he's I'm just saying this, and we always aware of pride, because the enemy tries to get pride in, and we're totally like we're onto that whole thing. So I don't give you kudos because I don't want to give you any challenges, but he's an incredible gifted anointed preacher, and he's a helicopter pilot, and he's a YouTuber, and he's a podcaster, and he does all these things. So I'm learning from him some things too, because my generation didn't have all this technology, and I can pick his brain. And I've always told you from the time you were little, if you want to learn, that was before YouTube was such a big thing. I remember saying, if you want to be successful in an area, go to somebody that's successful and pick their brains. to me, that's probably one of the best shortcuts to success in that specific area. Is I'd rather learn hands-on kinesthetic learning than actually try to watch all this stuff or read a book, because I don't absorb it that way. You know what I mean? It's kind of like school. I had school, my teachers always say, oh, you're talented, you're blah, 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 you know, and you could be so blah, blah, blah. And like I did not learn that way, you know, which the vast majority of people don't, you know, and I think that's probably, there's people like that can read the directions, and that's how they do things. I'm not that way. And I've actually did a seminar, and just to close on my part anyway, I did a seminar, and I was onto this. And so what I would do is I said, how many people learn by reading directions? How many people can put a desk together by reading directions? And there could be 100 people in that seminar, and usually it was about somewhere, I would say 5% of those people would say they read the directions. And I said, so how many, the rest of you, what do you do? And they would say, I look at the pictures. That's so what I do. I hate reading directions. I literally hate it. I want to take shortcuts. You know, I learn from experience, and it's just that's just how my brain works. And, but I can watch somebody do it, but I can do hands-on, and then I pick it up like that, you know what I mean? And so think about most of these schools, a lot of what's going on too is those kids that have that more of the mindset. We're talking probably 95% of it. It could be, because it was as adults that I've talked to. They don't learn that way. They don't pick it up. And I'm telling you for a fact, I've been in seminars with 500 plus people, and I've had somebody as incredible trainers, and they would do this great training. And then they would start asking questions, and the vast majority of people couldn't answer the questions. And I said, bingo, I know what that is already. It's because that's not how they pick up stuff. Because tell me this. When you, even sometimes, unless the Spirit of God is really moving, and are you ever thinking about, say it's Sunday, do you ever think about Monday? Do you ever think about Tuesday? Do you ever think about paying this bill or that bill? Your mind, at least mine does, a lot of times unless the Spirit of God's moving, I can be thinking about multiple things at the same time, and I have to work at it, not to do that. See what I'm saying? So, because a man, if you're the provider of the home in my situation and your situation, I'm seriously thinking about what I got to do. And now I got this big trip coming up, and now Mom's going to be going with me on top of it. This is a whole new thing. I got it down to a science what I do as far as the things I put together, and bam, I get in that truck, and then I know exactly. Now I'm going to take care of have another person there that I've got to kind of teach the ropes. And then at the same time, I mean, driving truck, what you do is risky. What I do is risky too, driving a truck. And so it's a whole nother game to me, but I'm constantly wanting to grow, just like, God willing, I'm planning on having a YouTube, my own, I've been working on it since 2018, putting all the stuff together, and a podcast. That's the direction I'm going to go to. And so I'm just saying, man, we got a lot of stuff going on. If you're a man, you're the provider of the home, man. We're here just to support you and like to share some things that may help you if you got questions. That's what I feel anyway. That's the only reason I'm here it's not to say I got all the answers. It's just, to be a witness and then be an encouragement and know that, like I always told you, man, think about how many times when I took you hunting. I think the first time going up the Book Cliff Mountains over in Colorado with Brother Hilton, going up that steep mountain there. And then you were right there, and literally you look down that mountain, it's one thing walking up it, but it's another thing when you look back down and you think, my God, what did I do? Because if you fell, I fell, we're toast. And so that was kind of a foolish thing, but we did it and we made it, and it's I believe it's made you who you are. Just like Frank Church Wilderness, when we went in there with those horses coming out, I remember being so dry, and just, I would quote things like inch by inch, it's a cinch, yard by yard, it's hard, man. Keep taking that step, man. Always trying to push like that. And I really feel like, it helped make you who you are, help Thomas make who he is. You know what I mean? Because just like when me and him went to Wyoming, man, it was gnarly for a while. So
I think those are all defining kind of what I was going to close out. Just say what is masculinity? It's pushing hard. It's pushing through things. It's being a present father, not an absent father. Being a good father, being a loyal friend. Mm-hmm. So just to kind of the conclusion of this episode, what is masculinity? It's you can add on one word sentences. Loyal friend. Responsible person, a worker. Someone that loves and has compassion. What else? Some other phrases.
It's what I've been talking about. It's like balance, man.
Balance. Being balanced.
Being balanced. You got to have that balance.
That's masculinity.
If you as a father love your kids, which I know you do and I do, I have a responsibility to. I don't believe, in other words, this is true. Because of our life experience. You give your kid everything. I was just talking to Mom about this the other day. I said, man, when I was growing up, I think I had maybe 2 toys, but I did have a horse. I did have starting out, I started with a Shetland pony. I mean, I lived in the country and we rode out into the woods. Me and my cousins would race out there. I had fishing back there and all that stuff. So, like, I took all that stuff for granted. Mm-hmm. But the value of that, man, it's invaluable. And I believe with all my heart, if you just give your kid everything, you're creating a weakling, in my opinion. Because even in business, like, for 30 years almost now, I've seen this so many times. A woman, as a rule, that's her... the people that she would bring in her organization, she always seemed to mother them. Mm-hmm. What did that do? What I learned, it did never, and as a rule, it will not create leaders, because if you try to do everything for everybody, you can only get so big. Yeah. And so my job for you, we know people, people your age, that their dad, because maybe their dad was more mean, or they thought harder on them, they wanted to be more easier on their kids. Mm-hmm. And so what they did is try to give them everything. But then they became dependent on their dad. Right. My idea of creating a leader is creating independence so you can make your own way. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that might seem like tough love. Right. But I think it's worked pretty good. Yeah. And that's based, again, on biblical principles, in my opinion. Exactly. So that's why I feel it was a success, Yeah. And like Trinity, she's a great mother. She loves her kids, man. She does all that stuff. So she's doing her part while her husband is going out and doing his part. You know what I mean? And it's a functioning family, and it works. Yep. If you guys want to say anything, you're always welcome to comment on the YouTube channel. That's basically one of the only places you can kind of give your 2 cents, and I always read those. So if you want to have any of your own comments on what masculinity is, it's such a broad topic. We would have to spend 10 hours just on that one subject, but we've already been probably about 20 minutes longer than I was trying to go, because we're going to record the other one on the attack on masculinity and get a little bit more in the weeds on that one. But again, stay, what's the word I'm looking for? To stay with the right attitude in it and everything. So, because I think emotionally, sometimes certain attacks that we see as a man can just really get you frustrated and flustered. But that's not really what's going to change things anyways. So, anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this one. Again, just to end with this, please go rate and review on Apple Podcasts. If you want to go rate, if you're listening on Spotify, I appreciate everybody that's done it. A bunch of you guys have went in recently and gave a lot of ratings, and it's definitely pushed the podcast. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys on the next one.